Hey there, everybody, welcome to your tech timeline for the week of September 22nd, 2013. Now, this, of course, is the show where I'm going to bring you everything awesome from this week in the worlds of tech and gaming news that you might have missed. And it was an explosive week, a lot of really cool stuff happened. But Sunday, to begin the week, we had a really slow news day. I was actually really worried that not a whole lot would be going on because of how slow Sunday was. I couldn't even find a story later in the week that really dated back to Sunday. So I decided to take this time to talk about something that I thought was really cool, really interesting, that I think you guys might have missed, or at the very least are going to have very strong opinions on. And that is the new Fox television show that was announced, Gotham. Now, this apparently is a show that's going to take more of a, I believe, not a lot has been announced, but I believe it's going to take more of a Batman Year One approach to the Gotham City Batman mythos. So it's kind of like before the advent of the Batman. It's going to be closely following Commissioner Gordon, and that's pretty much all we know. But we can kind of assume that it's going to be right around the time that he comes into Gotham, most likely, because he is kind of a transplant. That's a good, point of view entry piece for us, the viewer, to kind of see Gotham through his eyes. So I think that's probably a very solid point that they're going to try and bring about. But of course, there's a long storied history behind the would-be commissioner and the future commissioner of the city. And there's a lot of different kind of mythoses behind that character as well, depending on which, series or which kind of history you're looking at with regards to, the Batman comics and the television show and the, cartoons and all sorts of different stuff that's happened. So there are a lot of different angles for this TV show to kind of tackle. One thing that I think is really interesting is that DC and pretty much the regular creators of this kind of content have decided to go with Fox instead of the WB. The WB traditionally houses and kind of brings about a lot of the animated features that we've seen. And a lot of the DC, superhero live action type stuff. I mean, Smallville was from the CW/WB. And so it's kind of weird to see this moving to Fox. That makes me think that it might be a little bit more of a gritty, kind of visceral. They were trying to go for something because you can get away with a little bit more on Fox than you can on WB. So I think maybe they're going for something very kind of gritty. Now, this is being developed by the creator of The Mentalist, which is a terrible show, I will say that. So I'm a little scared, I'm a little skeptical of this one. But I will say that I am excited because the basic premise is awesome. And like I said, it's being pretty much brought down the pipeline by the same people that have brought us, the amazing animated series and stuff like that. And the fact that it's on Fox as well is kind of interesting to me. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But the main reason I wanted to bring this up is because I do think that a lot of you will have really strong opinions on this. And I want to hear your take on this story. What do you think about Gotham? Now, I know that there isn't a whole lot of stuff coming out, and more will come out in the coming weeks. We might touch back on this later. But I want to know what you think just from the premise and just from the idea and who's bringing it to you. What do you guys think this show is going to be? Because I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's put it that way. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm a little skeptical of it, but hopefully it's going to be really awesome. Now, Monday started rolling out some pretty cool news with the Netflix spoiler foiler. Now, this is really neat. It's actually going to censor tweets containing spoilers. Now, this is exclusively for the television show Breaking Bad and was actually brought about because in Europe it airs, slightly delayed, obviously, from when we get to see it. But I really think this is a cool idea if brought to other things. I mean, friends of mine, I'm not huge into social media. I mean, I will tweet to you guys and do stuff like that, but I'm not really big on checking up on Facebook and stuff like that. But friends of mine have complained that there are numerous spoilers to, I think Dexter's one of the shows that people have really been complaining about lately. So I know that there is a big, call for something like this. And this fact that it's just for Breaking Bad's a little disappointing, but I think it's a step in the right direction. And it's really cool for Netflix to kind of come out with this. It's kind of protecting itself. It wants people to be able to watch it on Netflix when it releases, I'm sure. But it's also just kind of conscientious to people who, have DVR'd the show, are in this world where not everyone watches shows as they air live. I think it's really cool to kind of protect ourselves a little bit from our uncouth friends that might be shooting out text messages around or surrounding crucial plot points in the final couple episodes, especially the last episode of Breaking Bad. Now, I have seen that this can be a little overbearing, blocking out tweets that kind of pseudo have something to do with the topic at hand. So it's a little sketchy at times, but I really do think that if this is applied to other shows and kind of reaches a broader audience, that a lot of people will really enjoy it. Now, Tuesday is kind of an I told you so moment for the world, and it's an I told you so to Yahoo. I think we kind of all heard about this Yahoo ID recycling. And this is, of course, where they took old usernames and kind of put them back in rotation. If they hadn't been used for over a year, they kind of put them back in circulation so you could get your username like Chumbawamba1 or whatever the hell you wanted. You could get that, grab that, and actually use it if it hadn't been used. Now, this is something that I think would kind of be cool for Twitter and stuff like that, because I know that a lot of people are upset that they couldn't get their Twitter name that they wanted because somebody else already had it and the account hasn't had any activity. So the basic idea in the tech world with usernames is good, except I think we all kind of had a collective what moment when we heard it was about Yahoo IDs. Now, this, of course, is a medium where you get sent important information that you wouldn't want anyone else to know or hear about. Now, this has been going on for about a month, and reports say that almost immediately people with these recycled IDs started receiving junk mail meant for the old account holder. Now, that's not really that big of a deal, you know. I mean, we all start getting spam and junk mail eventually. I haven't used Yahoo in a while, but Gmail that I'm on has a pretty good filter for that kind of stuff, kind of gets it out of your face. So that's not that big of a deal. But the problem that a lot of people are having is that eventually they started receiving personal information, Pandora account information, bank information, statements, stuff like that, things that people just kind of forgot were associated with that account. Now, there is a lot of finger pointing at these people who have allowed their IDs to go back into this recycle program by not using it in a year. And they're saying that, you know, it's kind of on them for not disassociating these accounts. But to be honest with you, I still send stuff that I don't really want to know, like I don't want to get spam from on my Gmail. I still shoot that to my old Yahoo account. Like I still kind of channel stuff through there, but I mean, God help me, I don't know the last time I actually logged into it. So I got to thinking about this, like, I think that's kind of a slap in the face to say that that's the end user's problem. It's their fault for not kind of disassociating and trying to take the prerogative in this. It's just a terrible idea, really, when you think about it. Like, Yahoo had spokespeople that came out and were like, no, it's totally secure, everything will be fine, but oh my God, holy shit, I just realized somebody might have my, if I ever want to get into Neopets, some dick might get my password. What am I going to do about that? That's terrible. That poor little Neopet is probably starved. Does that still exist? Does anyone remember that? That was huge, man. What was it, grade school? You just clicked on some stuff and you fed a little dragon thing. It's pretty sweet. I liked that. But anyway, yeah, that's the exact point. Old stuff that you don't necessarily remember is associated with that account. If you go and are like, oh, I forgot my password to this, they're going to send it to someone else. Be like, hey, I reset your password for you. And that person will be like, cool, I don't know what you're talking about. So obviously, I think we can all kind of agree that this was a bad idea. I don't really know how Yahoo's going to fix it, rather than just blame the people whose IDs have been recycled. But hopefully someone can sort this out, because it is a huge security concern. I mean, Neopets and funny stuff like that aside, this is a really big deal and people should be worried about it. Wednesday, the new iOS7 icons are so hideous, it's actually making people vomit. And by that, of course, I mean that the parallax effect, the new big name feature, one of the new big name features in iOS 7, is actually causing motion sickness. Now, you know me, I don't really like to talk about the phone industry and stuff like that because it's a lot of rumors and crazy stuff. But this is just a story that's too big to ignore. And it is not a rumor. It is actually affecting a specific, I will say, I'll hedge my bets and say a specific, very small subset of people. But it's something that I never even thought of. I mean, I kind of immediately turned parallax off because I think it's just kind of a waste of battery. I don't really see the use behind it. I mean, like, oh, it's kind of 3D-ish, maybe. But I never really saw the use behind it. So I turned it off kind of immediately to conserve battery and everything like that. But I never gave it a second thought. And apparently some people with like acute motion sickness and stuff like that, pretty big problems, I imagine, seasickness, something like that, it's being caused and triggered by the parallax. And it kind of makes sense because it is a kind of jarring, it's not a very subtle motion. I mean, it's kind of slow, but the actual motion is very sweeping. So apparently several people have become sick over this. I don't know what Apple is going to do about it. I just think that it's important to report on that, small advancements and small things like that can kind of be problems for people. We can't really prepare for everything. I feel kind of bad for Apple on this story because you have to kind of assume that they did the testing and stuff. I mean, one article that I read kind of pointed the finger at Apple being like, oh, you didn't test it enough. But this is kind of an out there thing, and it does suck, and I really feel for the people that like upgraded or got new phones. And it's rough. I mean, especially since downgrading really isn't an option, since, the new 64-bit, 32-bit change that's going on between applications and stuff like that. There's not really an opportunity for people to downgrade their iOS experience, because I was kind of thinking that maybe Apple could do that. But for them to run sort of iOS on older phones, the 32-bit, on newer phones, the 64-bit, and then to also kind of trying to be fixing this issue by having people be able to run the older iOS version as well, iOS 6, I don't think logistically that's an option. So I don't know how Apple will be able to solve this problem, and I will be keeping an eye on it because it's very sad that people might get this new phone, be super excited about it, and actually have it make them physically ill. And I really feel for those people, definitely. Thursday is a little bit more lighthearted because Netflix is putting even more H into your D. It's higher quality 1080p. I don't even really know what that means anymore. I am kind of a quality snob. It really came about when I started making videos for this channel, and I became really gun-ho obsessed with making sure they were as high quality as they could be, or as that I could make them with the equipment that I have. So I really started to notice, oh, this is 720, oh, it's garbage. That kind of thing. And I tried to watch everything that I would consume in 1080, or at least the highest resolution setting that they could give us. Now, this is kind of weird because it's just supposed to bring about like a higher quality 1080p. So it's not like they're actually changing the format. It's just supposed to be even more crisp and more clear. Now, this was originally available. It's been available for a while, but this was originally available only from certain internet service providers that kind of let Netflix cache information, and it was a weird kind of system that they had. Now, this is still only available, however, on certain titles and certain devices, so it's not kind of a broad-reaching thing. But it is weird, like, we keep getting these advancements in high definition, and then you also have stuff like the Oculus Rift, so you gotta think that with high definition still expanding, I mean, I think we kind of all thought that we were done for a while when we hit the 1080p, in that kind of, because we kind of diverged into 3D and stuff like that. I think we kind of thought that we were kind of maxed out on high definition for a while. But the fact that we're still making advancements makes me hopeful for that kind of virtual software as well, because maybe the older kind of architecture or infrastructure for, lower grade high definition is going to become easier and more applicable to those kind of things as well. So I do think this is a pretty cool story, a pretty cool little story, even at the very least for those of you who own like a PlayStation 3 or a Roku, which I think are two of the things that are able to do this kind of HD, like double HD. I think it's cool even at that level because it is kind of fun to see how crisp and how clear you can get something to show up. Now, Friday, I know you've probably been waiting. The whole video, I decided to cover everything that Steam has done on Friday. Steam Splosion happened this week with a ton of different announcements. Now, on Monday, we found out about their OS. On Tuesday, we found out about Steam machines. And then we just found out about the gamepads that they're coming out with. Now, I wanted to talk about each of these separately, but it would have taken up too much space in the episode. But I do want to touch on each one briefly right now. First, I want to talk about the gamepads because there seems to be a lot of controversy surrounding these. Not a lot of people like the dual trackpads. If you haven't seen this thing, there's a picture right there. So if you haven't seen it and if you haven't read about it, definitely click the link. But I think that a lot of people are dismissing this thing because it looks so strange, because it's so stupid looking. it doesn't look normal. Let's put it that way. But I don't think it's stupid looking. Like, a lot of people are dismissing it as being like a novelty type of item. But I think it all depends, I think, on the tactile feedback. Because when I was first, like, this kind of haptic feedback stuff that they have going on, when I first looked at it, I was like, I don't know if you can really do button presses and stuff like that on dual trackpads, which is kind of what it's running right here. But then down a little ways in kind of the press release, the presser, they talk about, how this feedback is going to be. They don't really touch too deeply on it, but I think that that's going to be the key. I think that it'll be easy. If there's some kind of supplementary ability to feel where your thumb is, and know kind of what you're pressing and stuff. I mean, joysticks and, thumbsticks and everything have a very visceral feel to them. And I think that's what a lot of people are put off by. But I think that a lot of those kind of problems can be assuaged by that haptic feedback. So we need to know more about that. And overall, I think we just need to know more about the gamepad before we pass judgment. I think it's pretty cool looking. I think it's way different than anything else on the market. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's got the 2 top buttons, which a lot of people are kind of overlooking, saying it doesn't have enough buttons. It does have, just as much buttons or just as many buttons as a lot of the other things. It doesn't have like a D-pad or anything. It kind of consolidated those into those 2 trackpads like we were talking about. But really look at the specs before you kind of pass judgment on this thing. And I think that we definitely need to, see more from it and talk more about what it can do once we get it into our hands. Because with any controller, it's really hard to just say, hey, this controller sucks, this controller rocks, just from seeing it. You need to hold it in your hands, feel the weight distribution, different stuff like that, ease of play, comfort. And of course, they're trying to tap into a market that is able to use, point and click controls and stuff like that. And I think that maybe this is the best way to kind of bring that about. Now, the OS is not really something I'm super interested in. I do enjoy big picture mode. It doesn't crash for me. I'm not sure. I've heard a lot of people talk about how it kind of crashed. I don't know if that was earlier on in its inception and in its development, and they've kind of fixed that. I mean, it is still kind of a beta thing, I believe. It might have been officially released, but, big picture is still kind of in its infancy at the very least. But I've never really had a problem with it. I think that it's a pretty fun little way to kind of go around the site. It does make looking at specials and stuff like that a lot easier. You don't have to click through all those pages, and it kind of consolidates packages that you can buy. So I think big picture is pretty cool. I'm hopeful for the OS. I mean, I don't really care about the Linux base or anything like that. I mean, obviously the minds behind Steam and at Valve really like that kind of thing and have been talking about it for a while, how they want to get away from Windows and stuff like that. So I think that was pretty obvious. It was coming kind of the whole time. I think everybody kind of saw the OS coming. But let's talk about something that everybody was hopeful for, everybody wanted to see coming, and that is Steam machines. Now, I've got a lot to say about this too. I kind of wish that we could just have a dedicated release about just this news item, because this is something that I'm very hopeful for, but I'm also very worried about. Now, in the presser, they've talked about how they want to have a variety of Steam machines made by a variety of different people. And that is kind of what worries me. Of course, the Steam machine is going to be kind of like a set-top, Roku-like box, kind of like the PS Vita TV, something like that. That's going to allow you to do to access Steam and everything like that just in your living room. It's bringing Steam from your computer to your living room. It's an easier setup. It's an easier way to kind of pass through all those games and everything like that. And I'm really hopeful for this. Steam is releasing its own sort of device. It's kind of beta test device, and there's a way to sign up for that and everything. If you check out the presser, you can get in and involved in that. So they're kind of testing the waters or towing the waters a little bit. But they've said that they want to kind of spread this out and have many different developers developing these different systems. And that's what kind of worries me. Like, I understand that they want different tiers. They want kind of an easier tier to mess around with, a lower grade tier, and then they want kind of like an expert tier. I get that, and I get that they want different people to work on them. That way they can have different price points, different stuff like that. It just worries me. I would feel a lot better if Valve just released its own line of Steam boxes, like maybe 3 or 4 Steam boxes. You know, one that was low grade, you know, another one that was middle, another one that was like high end, and then one that's basically just an empty box and you can fit your components in. That is one thing to talk about when we're talking about the Steam boxes or the Steam machines. And that's that they want to make them easily upgradable. You know, you just, hey, I need a new video card, ba-chow, new video cards in it, and everything like that. I mean, there's just so much to cover. It's really a hard story to kind of condense down. So definitely read the press release if you're interested. But it's pretty much everything you've come to expect from Steam. They want to make it open, easily moddable, easily hackable. They want to make it easily upgradable, and they want to make it available to as many people as possible. Pretty much Steam's pillars of excellence that have made it, you know, kind of the juggernaut it is today. Obviously, we don't know price point on any of these things. We don't know exactly when they'll be released. We have a very broad release window, so it's hard to tack down how exactly I feel about these. But I am a little skeptical about the Steam machines just being made by so many different people. I'm kind of worried about quality control. You know, is one going to be way better than the others, but it's way more expensive? The other ones are all kind of cheap and chintzy. I mean, I don't know. I am very concerned about kind of the spread out nature of it, but obviously that's how, you know, PCs and everything work as well. So it's just a weird thing. I was just kind of hoping to have a consolidated effort from Valve. And if they release their own, I think that's probably going to be the one that I get. On that note, I want to talk to you guys about the Steam machines. How do you feel about them? Get back to me, let me know, because I really want to know. I had a conversation with my good friend Andrew the other day where we discussed which would we get. If it was gun to your head, Steam machine or one of the next gen consoles, which would you get? And I think we both kind of agreed Steam machine because they're easily upgradable. I mean, 8 years from now, your next gen console will be 8 years old, where with the Steam machine, you can pop in a new graphics card, put in more memory, stuff like that. So I don't know. Hopefully the price point is such that we're able to get both. But if a Steam machine costs like $800, I mean, just pricing components and stuff, if it costs like $800 or something for a Steam machine, then it's not really, it's going to be very atypical if you're able to afford, you know, that and 2 new consoles and everything like that. So it's definitely worth keeping your ear to the ground. I would hope that they have more information about price point before the new consoles launch, because that is possible that that could hurt their launch next year, because people will have already bought the consoles, and if they're super expensive, then they won't have the money for the Steam boxes. So I don't know. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to digest, and hopefully you guys get back to me. If I missed anything, definitely hit up the comments, because there was a ton of information to cover. Finally, on Saturday, we have space news in the form of water actually being contained in the soil on Mars. Now, there's 2% water in the soil on Mars. They've discovered this. NASA's Curiosity rover, which has been, you know, tootling along for a while now, has been doing all sorts of tests and finding different pieces of evidence that water once existed on that planet. But now we know for certain that there is actually water in the soil. It's a very small percentage. Like I said, it's 2%. And to actually get it out of the soil, you need to like superheat the soil and do a bunch of weird stuff to it. And even then, we're not sure if the water would be drinkable. I mean, it's bound to other chemicals and agents that are in the atmosphere there and in the soil there. So it's very hard to kind of disseminate all that and get pure, you know, high quality H2O out of the soil. But it's very exciting that there's just water there. It's really, this Curiosity expedition has brought this planet really closer to our understanding. And it's made it a lot easier, and I think it's made a lot of strides to allowing us to know more about these other heavenly bodies and to kind of figure out what the history and everything of Mars is and was, and kind of what the planet was like a long time ago, and just kind of learn a lot about our solar system and about our neighboring planets. It is kind of weird. I mean, a lot of people don't see too much use in it in their immediate lives, you know, because there isn't a lot. But we do have finite resources on the planet, and I think a lot of people kind of lose track of that. And colonizing distant worlds is more science fiction to a lot of people than real science. But the thing about science fiction is that a lot of times it becomes applicable real-world science. And this kind of discovery of the water on Mars is just kind of making that point. Maybe colonization isn't such a far-fetched thing. Maybe not in our lifetimes, maybe not in our next generation, but these kind of advancements do make a huge impact in the world down the line. So it's definitely cool to be keeping an eye on what Curiosity is up to and what the conditions on Mars are like. And there you go. That is your tech timeline for this week. A lot of stuff, like I said, happened. A lot of cool little things, little stories like the, ID recycling and the spoiler foiler that you might have missed, overshadowed by the huge announcement from Steam that I really think has the potential to kind of rock the gaming industry. But as always, the info for all these stories, all the links to all the sources that I used are going to be down in the description, so be sure to check those out if you have any more questions or anything about these stories. Also, feel free to hit up the comments if you want to talk to me directly about the stories. I love talking to you guys. And of course, I always have to have this section. I hate doing this, but if you could please share this video wherever you can with as many people as you can. I would really appreciate it. Friends, family, whoever, even enemies, if you hated it and then you hate someone else and you're like, they'll hate this, then just send it to them too. And there you go. I mean, they're enemies. Send it to them too. Perfect. Make their day worse by forcing them to listen to me. And as always, if you guys have any tips for any stories of your own, please share those with me, be it down in the comments or through private message on Twitter or getting at me just on regular Twitter, and any kind of private message in YouTube as well. Any way that you can put my name in an address box and send me something. I would love to get tips for next week's show. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching this particular show, though, even if you don't do any of that other stuff. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the future.